Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes and thanks for joining me for another one of my random horror reviews. Today's movie is one that was actually a first time watch for me, and it turned out to be a movie that I didn't think it was going to be. It caught me off guard with what it actually turned out to be like. I kind of tried to go into this one as blind as possible, but today's movie is from 2003 and it's called The Last Horror Movie. So we'll quickly go into the plot for this one before we get into my thoughts. So this movie opens in this typical slasher film kind of setup. It's a little bit low budget, and it's set on this rainy night in this cafe, and yes, some strange things are going on. And then the film just starts to glitch and stops, and then it turns out that we have this lead character. His name is Max, and he has recorded over this movie, and now you are watching his home recordings, and it's basically him and his cameraman following him around, recording murders and talking about why he is doing these murders. It's very much like one of those follow a serial killer around fake mockumentary sort of films. So it's a little bit hard to go into the plot for this one, but that's pretty much it. So let's get into my thoughts of The Last Horror Movie from 2003. So as I said in my intro, this is actually a harder movie to kind of talk about since it's meant to be documentary style, home video sort of thing. So there's not really a storyline in a way. You're just following a person around doing these murders and killings and whatever. So it's a little bit hard to get into the plot and the story for this one. But for the most part, this is somewhat engaging. I feel like it does run a little bit too long, which is weird because this is only a movie with a 76-minute runtime. But I just feel like there's a lot of downtime in this movie where we have Max just talking to the camera, and I guess that's where I'm going to start off with. I really don't like Max as a lead. He just comes off as being really pretentious and just a little bit annoying, just talks lots of shit, and I'm just like, oh my god, get to something happening instead of speaking down to us watching. Like, I get that it's his character and he probably thinks that he's better than everyone else, but he was the most annoying lead character that I've seen in a very, very long time. And it just took away from the beats in this movie that were engaging. Just every time that he was alone with the camera and talking to us through it, it just completely took me out of this movie, and as I said, made a movie with only a 76 runtime really drag. Now, after talking about Max as a character, let's get into the actual performances. And coming back to Max, as I said, his character's annoying. He's very pretentious, and I just think he talks way too much shit. But however, the guy actually playing Max, I feel like he's not a bad actor at all. As I said, I just feel like his character is a bit poorly written, just talks too much shit, and there's a difference between delivering a bad performance and having a bad character. I just don't like Max as a character, but I think the performance is fine. However, other performances in this movie I do feel like are pretty weak, which is unfortunate because, as I said, this is meant to be a very realistic movie. It's meant to be mockumentary style. This is meant to be pretty much a home video of this serial killer. And it takes you a little bit out of it again when a lot of the other performances are pretty weak, and I feel like maybe a little bit over the top for something that is trying to be realistic. So unfortunately, that's a little bit annoying. But to get back into the positives, one thing that it's a real nitpicky one, but as I said, at the start of the movie, it sets up like you're watching a totally different movie. It's set up like one of those throwback 80s slasher films. It looks like a lot of fun, and I thought that's sort of what we were getting ourselves into. But about 5 minutes into the movie, it starts to glitch and turns into this home video. I kind of actually want to see what was the go if the whole movie was like that opening, because I was pretty hooked in. I was like, okay, it's going to be a throwback to like an old school 80s slasher, and we didn't get that, which, as I said, that's nitpicky, but I just would have liked to see what would have came from that 5 minutes if it was an actual runtime of a movie. So already I'm going to sort of wrap up my thoughts of this movie now. As I said, there are parts where this is actually really engaging and you're starting to learn a little bit of backstory of this killer and his motives and everything. However, there's just too much downtime where he's talking one-on-one with the camera, and that is where I'm completely checked out. As I've said it so many times, I just feel like he's talking shit. He's very pretentious. There's nothing worse than having an unlikable lead. And it's not like he's unlikable because he's a serial killer, which sounds terrible of me, but it's just, as I said, he just talks that much shit and he's really pretentious. I'm like, oh my god, can you shut up and go do something else, because it's really, really boring and dragging. And as I said, for a movie with a 76-minute runtime, this should fly by. But there's so many parts where I'm just like, oh my god, move on, move on, move on. And then, as I said, even though his character's a little bit annoying, he gives a decent enough performance. But then there's background characters and side characters in this where, as I said, this is meant to be as realistic as possible. It's meant to be a home video mockumentary style film, and their performances are a little bit over the top, or they're just not at the level it should be, and it sort of again takes you out of it. So this is sort of a frustrating movie, it has its moments where you can be like, okay, this is actually going to be really interesting, but the end result just doesn't really deliver. So by the end of it, I feel like this movie is very middle of the mark. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So I feel like right in the middle. I mean, there's plenty of worse movies out there. But by all means, again, this movie isn't great, unfortunately. So I'm going to leave this one there, sort of a shorter review. But as I said, this is a harder movie to talk about because there's not really a storyline or plot. We're just essentially following this character Max around while he does these terrible things and also talks to us through the camera for majority of the runtime, which, as I said, is a little bit of the low point of the movie. But there we go, guys. That is my thoughts of the last horror movie from 2003. If you have seen this one before, let me know what your thoughts of it in the comments below. As I said, not really my thing, but a 5 out of 10, right in the middle. But it was an interesting watch, and I'm happy that I did get around to it because, as I said, it sort of caught me off guard with the type of movie that I thought it was going to be. So in that sense, it was pretty interesting to check this one out. But either way, thank you for joining me for this random horror review, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.